International Media TV, television that listens to you.
Hi, I'm Johnnie Burrell. Welcome to the program.
My brothers and sisters, it is still very painful for me to say anything. Because I was here nearly 40 years ago. When I came to town and I got the bad news that our illustrious former mayor, Willie Brown Jr., Arnold Townsend, thank God he's still around and has a sense of history, Morris Phillips, Joe Hall, Essie Collins, Vera Clanton, and others that time would not permit me to call the roll of all the names, went to the city fathers of this city and asked them to permit them to do the legal, human, smart thing of rebuilding the community that through public policy dating back to 1948 had destroyed the presence of African Americans in this area that used to be known as the Harlem of the West, the Fillmore. And I may not cite how vibrant that watering hole was in those days, when blacks who came here to work in the war industries, because no other males were found to unload the ships, to build the ships, to serve as personnel for white soldiers who were going to war. You know, they wouldn't even trust us to be on the front lines because they thought that because of our contempt for racism in America, we just might defect to the enemy. And then, you know, the movie Red Tails so eloquently states it, that they lied on us and said we could not fly airplanes, we couldn't go too high. And Eleanor Roosevelt, Madam Bethune, and others went down to Tuskegee and said, oh no, black men and women can fly planes. I cite this quick history, Madam Chair, and all of you to say, it is a sad day that we've come to this point, that the one gift that black folks, according to historians, gave to the world, jazz, that gift has been taken over by folk who don't look like us. shame, shame, shame on San Francisco. And don't just raise questions about whether or not black persons who had the chance messed up. White folks are messed up. When that spaceship blew up and those folks lost their lives, did we stop putting money into the space program? No, we kept on feeding it out, trying to go up to a place where we haven't been. What my appeal to you before I take my seat is that if this city has an ounce of a moral compass about it, it will not talk at black folks. It will not talk around black folks. It will not talk under black folks. But it will sit down with the people whom the city has wronged and say, how can we work as a team to keep black folks in this town and in the Fillmore, and make sure that as they do in jazz, yes, we got the harmony, some of it from Europe with the saxophone and sometimes with the strings, but you know, my dear brother from Indiana, that jazz becomes jazz at its best when you can have that breakaway and somebody can do his or her thing. Black folks need a place in this town where we can have our breakaway and do our thing, celebrate our history, celebrate our music, celebrate our culture, celebrate our dignity. And if this city does not put a black face on to that place over there, we need to stop living the lie around the world that we are progressive and liberal. For we will prove to be like the folks down where we think they are not right, just like they are, saying if you're black, you get back. You're brown, you stick around. If you're red, you're dead. And if you're white, you're always right. We got to stop this demon of race destroying one people because they are of the darker hue. The redevelopment agency took all these millions of dollars out of this area. We had enough money here. But when they came along with those bad policies about those vouchers that wasn't worth the ink that they wrote them on, it destroyed the economic base of this community. And then we turned around and let San Francisco Jazz, a non-profit entity, be constructed over there on Franklin and made it impossible for any promoters of black folks to compete. Why don't you be fair and stop changing the rules in the middle of the game? So, as I take my seat, if we would just do the right thing, that day will come, as I've always said, which is my trademark. When we act like, as a majority culture, we got sense and we're fair and we got some decency, black folks will be able to say, I'm black and I'm proud. I'm brown and I'm sound, somebody will say. I'm yellow and I'm mellow. I'm red, I ain't dead. I'm white and I'm all right. I'm gay, but I'm godly. I'm straight, but I'm sensible. It's time for this town to be straight and to be sensible and be fair to black folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Brown. Thank you, Reverend Brown. We appreciate your remarks. And Before we get started, I want to acknowledge my colleague who's here today. Supervisor Scott Weiner is joining us. Thanks for being here, Scott. And we have a number of folks here. This project, as you may know, was put together with many different departments, specifically the redevelopment agency, but the redevelopment agency no longer exists. And now it's OCII, which is Office of Community Investment. And Christine Maher is here. She's going to talk a little bit about the history. And if you want a copy of the information, there's a memo back there so you can take a copy of it just to give you a breakdown of some of the things that have happened over the years, that from the start to finish in terms of how we got here. And she's going to summarize that information, but this information is also online. It's public information, so that you can have the facts of exactly what happened and why we're here today. Joaquin Torres is here from the Office of Economic and Workforce Development, and he's going to talk a little bit about this project as well. We're going to open it up to public comment, and our goal is to hear feedback from folks. I know that there were some of you who were here last week who made comments and gave recommendations, and also asked a number of questions, and our goal is to try and incorporate those questions, the answers to those questions in some of our comments. But also, Derek Brown is here. There he is in the back. Derek Brown is the director of the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, and he's the one who is, number one, collecting all the information. Number two, he's also going to be the person who's responding and sending out answers to the questions in the future as well. And finally, the Mayor's Office representative who's here, Theo Miller, who is helping to facilitate this project as well. And the goal is to try and make sure that each and every one of them, and just to be clear, you all know I'm London Breed. I'm the supervisor that represents this district. I grew up here on Eddy and Laguna, been here my whole life, and when I'm no longer supervisor, I'm still going to live here in this community, and I know that decisions have consequences. The decisions matter because they impact people's lives, and at the end of the day, the decisions that I make to change policy or to do whatever I need to do in order to support this community, at the end of the day, what matters to me the most is that I'm taking care of the members of this community. And so that's the spirit by which we're having this meeting, by which we're bringing members from the mayor's office here to provide you with this information, but more importantly, for them to hear from you on what you want to see. Reverend Brown has already started the process with what he believes should happen, and so we'll move in that direction to hear from many of you here today to hear your thoughts on the issue. So right now, I want to open it up to Christine Maher, who is with OCII. As some of you know, Tiffany Bohe was here the last time and went through the summary of the memo, but unfortunately she couldn't join us here today. So Christine is here to take her place, and after she finishes speaking, then we'll open it up to Joaquin Torres. And I also would like to acknowledge from the Mayor's Office of Housing, because as some of you know, money from housing money was used to also pay for the space. Benjamin McCloskey is here from Mayor's Office of Housing representing Olson Lee. So Christine.
Thank you, Supervisor Breed, and good evening, and thank you all for coming out tonight. Again, my name is Christine Maher. I'm the Manager of Real Estate for the Office of Community Investment and Infrastructure, OCII, also the former San Francisco Redevelopment Agency. As Supervisor Breed mentioned, I'm just going to start out tonight giving you kind of a quick overview of how we got to where we are today in terms of the Fillmore Heritage Center. There's more. Speak louder, sure, move it closer. Better? Is that better? Okay. So the information I'm going to share with you tonight is a more detailed version in the back available as a handout. It's the same version that was distributed last week, so if you did pick it up last week, no need to get it again tonight. So I'll start with just a quick overview of the Fillmore Heritage Center project. As you probably know, it was an $80 million public-private partnership. It has 80 condominium units that were privately financed, and all of them were sold off. It has about 50,000 square feet of commercial space that was financed with both public and private funds. And it has a 112-space parking garage that was constructed entirely with public funds. The commercial space, as well as the garage, is currently owned by the Office of Community Investment and Infrastructure as the successor to the former redevelopment agency. Back in 2005, the city provided a $5.5 million loan from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, for construction of the commercial space. The former redevelopment agency also contributed about $10.5 million in loan funds for the tenant improvements to Yoshi's and 1300 on Fillmore. The former agency then leased the entire commercial space to Fillmore Development Commercial, or FDC. And then FDC then subleased that commercial space to two tenants, Yoshi San Francisco and 1300 on Fillmore. As time went on, FDC fell behind on its payments on the HUD loan to the city, as well as property taxes and the maintenance charges that were due to the Homeowners Association for upkeep of the property. The city had to step in and use funding from other sources, in this case Community Development Block Grant funding, to make payments on the HUD loan on behalf of the FDC. And OCII also had to step in and make payments on the CAM charges that were due to the Homeowners Association using property tax revenues. As I think you all know, in November of 2012, Yoshi's SF did file for bankruptcy. And in about 2 years later, in June of 2014, the bankruptcy court actually approved a settlement agreement related to the bankruptcy. As a result of that settlement agreement, Yoshi's SF debts were restructured, and the business was actually sold to FDC and its investor group. FDC began operating a music venue in July of 2014 at The Edition. Unfortunately, shortly thereafter, it became apparent that FDC wasn't going to be able to make the payments that it had agreed to make to both OCII and the city as part of this bankruptcy settlement agreement. And shortly thereafter, in January of 2015, the Edition actually closed its doors. In response to this, both OCII and the city took a number of actions. In February, OCII actually issued a notice of default to FDC under the lease, and for a number of reasons. One was, of course, the closure of the Edition. Second was security and life safety issues associated with having a vacant building. And third was failure to pay property taxes of about $150,000 and common area maintenance charges of about $250,000. At that same time, the city also issued a notice of default to FDC HUD loan, citing approximately $1.6 million in missed payments on the loan, as well as $500,000 in interest and penalties. Over the next couple of months, FDC requested and received additional time from the city and OCII to negotiate with a new investor group with the hopes that they could reopen the space and take over the day-to-day operations to reactivate the space. Unfortunately, FDC wasn't able to come to terms with this new investor group, and they weren't able to cure all of the defaults under the lease and under the loan with the city. As a result, in June of this year, OCII actually terminated the lease with Fillmore Development Commercial, and the city immediately stepped in as the master tenant under the lease. Right now, the total amount due to the city and OCII is about $18 million. Before turning the presentation over to Joaquin Torres to talk about where we go from here, I'd like to just briefly mention the dissolution of the former agency, the redevelopment agency, and how that impacts the process for moving forward. As you may or may not know, redevelopment agencies were dissolved statewide in February of 2012. As part of this process, successor agencies were created to kind of wind down the affairs of the business of the former agencies and to dispose of all the former redevelopment agencies' properties. So the Office of Community and Investment and Infrastructure is the successor agency to the former redevelopment agency, and we're tasked with winding down the agency's activities and disposing of property, such as the Fillmore Heritage Center. Redevelopment or successor agencies operate under this new body of law called what we call redevelopment dissolution law, but it essentially, again, tasks us with winding down and getting out of business. And under redevelopment dissolution law, OCII is required to sell both the garage and the commercial parcel. And as part of that process, the State Department of Finance will be reviewing any such sale of the property. So that will ultimately affect how this process moves forward. And with that, I will turn it over to Joaquin.
Thank you very much, Christine. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with an acknowledgement of the past and the history in this room and this neighborhood, and to talk about some of the plans that we can discuss for moving forward. For those of you who were here about 2 weeks ago, we talked about how we could have the community involved in terms of any decision-making process that would end up in the ultimate tenant or operator of the site at the Fillmore Heritage Center. And I just wanted to let everyone know that that is still a process that is developing, and we're moving towards that end. I also wanted to reiterate that the opportunity for public comment again tonight is for us to also hear additional questions that you may want to have answered that we may not be able to answer tonight with regards to this process moving forward. Again, it's an opportunity for us to send out, for those of you who had signed your email addresses, to make sure that we can get that information out to you quite quickly after this meeting with the additional information that we have, and a location where you can go online to find the document that you have in front of you and any updates that we'll have for you in the days and weeks ahead. It's our intention to come back in September of this year with another community meeting to give you the final details of where we're at, or close to final details of where we're at, in terms of how we move process with the Fillmore Heritage Center and how the community will be involved. With regards to some items of business, I've heard from the community or through other members, the community is concerned about a few of the items inside the Fillmore Heritage Center, specifically with regards to the busts of Jim Jefferson and Leroy King. We're in conversations right now with some folks to make sure that those be moved to a site where those busts are accessible to the community. We'll be moving forward with that. We've also heard some concerns around the issue of the piano that was removed from the site. I know this is some detailed business, but just to let folks know that that was the property of Yoshi's Oakland, and the sale of that asset, the piano, is being used to repay the bank on behalf of Yoshi's Oakland. That's a sale that's been approved by the city, so there's that's a normal transaction that's been taking place. Again, I wanted to acknowledge Derek Brown from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. He's the one who will be your point of contact, collecting questions if you want to reach him directly. He's in room 160 at City Hall. He's very easy to reach and always accessible, as am I at City Hall. He'll have his number available to folks in email that will be coming out to you, in addition to Valley Brown from President Breed's office as well. Just wanted to again say, based on President Breed's comments, that no new tenant has been selected for the Fillmore Heritage Center. No new tenant has been selected. There is going to be a process moving forward, a public selection process, and it is our hope to have community members part of that process to help determine what final recommendation will come before the city for a new tenant or operator of that site. Again, I wish we had more specifics for you, but we will have that in the coming weeks, again, based on your participation tonight and additional questions or desirable uses for the space that you may have. As President Breed said again, the overwhelming support for continued arts activation of the site is something that we've been hearing loud and clear, and that is something that we'll be working with the drafters of any selection process to ensure that those applicants understand that as a priority. With that, I think that's about as much information as can provide at this time. But we look forward to having more information to you in a detailed fashion after hearing from you again tonight and when we see you in September. Again, we'll be sending out an email where you can contact us directly. Please don't hesitate to do so with any questions, comments, observations, concerns with regards to the site. And we look forward to the continued dialogue. So thank you very much.
All right, folks, thank you very much. I hope that information was enough, but if there are other questions, feel free to ask when you present during public comment. And there may be questions that we may be able to answer right away, but there may be questions that we may need to wait to send responses to. So it's just a matter of time and also the number of people who want to make comments tonight. So at this time, I will open it up, and if there are any members of the public, it'd be helpful, anyone who wants to, you don't have to all line up at once. We're going to be here as long as it takes to hear from each and every one of you who wants to speak. But if you can line up to my left, your right, and I want to make sure that everyone has 2 minutes and to make comments or to ask questions. And again, if we can answer questions, we will try, but if not, we will make sure that we include those in our responses like we did before. I know Derek sent out a follow-up email with more detail providing answers to questions that people had, and we want to do the same thing. And we are coming before anything is done, and I want to make that clear. I think that's why people are concerned or worried or wondering, well, what's going on? Will I have a say? Will I have a seat at the table? This is a seat at the table. This is the opportunity for us to have this dialogue, and as long as it takes for us to do that, that's what I'm here to do. And so I do appreciate many of you taking the time to come here to talk about something so important to our community. So with that, I'm going to ask the first speaker to come forward, and again, we're going to be here to listen and do what we can to answer questions. And Valley will be keeping the time, and if you could be considerate towards other members who'd like to make comments as well when you're speaking, that would be appreciated. Thank you all.
All right, thank you for having this meeting. I'm Jacques Talafero with His Media and also with the Fillmore Bay Area Media Group. Thanks to Ken Johnson, the president. He's the one who really has kept this alive. We have a brief video that we're going to show it. I believe it's right in the 2-minute range, and hopefully you enjoy it. I'll be right back up.
legislation, but you cannot be silent in the face of terror and tyranny. This is economic tyranny.
So I really want to thank Reverend Burrell for technically getting that together, because thank you very much. And also Barry Dow, excellent musician, entrepreneur, and example of the type of program that will go into whatever we call the new Yoshis. I'm going to be brief because that took up basically like 2 minutes. But another thing I just have to bring out is that when I first met our now mayor, Lee, he was the city manager. And at that time, he was investigating reparations. And I remember I kind of arrogantly, Jacques arrogantly went up to him and was like, who are you to be doing reparations for black folks? And then he told me his background as he got reparations for the Japanese. He obviously represented the Black Panthers. And he has the list of the corporations here in San Francisco that owe reparations. And a friend of mine's at Dun & Bradstreet did a survey, and really, if you go back to the out-migration of black people in the 1800s leading up to now, we're owed about, okay, the number's staggering. So let's start there, paying us back before you start trying to get money from us. Okay.
Let me say just a couple of things real quickly about my concerns on this evening, because I'm really, so far I haven't heard anything that encourages me as to what our major concerns are about Yoshis. The greatest problem that African Americans have in San Francisco, besides the housing crisis, which is all over the city of San Francisco, for us, it's an economic crisis. We have no commercial activity. We have no commercial district. Just think about this. How many African Americans do you know that pay their mortgage or their rent, send their kids to school, buy their food and their entertainment from a check signed by an African American? And I don't mean the CFO like I have an African American CFO. I'm talking about someone who has their own business. We have to increase our economic vitality. If tonight we told the Chinese community, you can have no more businesses, that's it. Don't you think by tomorrow they might have an employment problem in the Chinese community if they all had to go out and get jobs from people that don't look like them? There were hundreds of people who worked, or black people who worked on Fillmore for other black folk. We're not living in the past. We're saying we've got to create and recreate some things for the future. Because I'm going to tell you, a city, contrary to what racists may think, a city without a vital African American community is an unhealthy city. Entertainment, music is dead in this town because it died first in our community. Much of what went on in this town, we were the lifeblood for. And so all I'm dying to hear is a yes or no on one question. Will the city do what it can to ensure there is African American involvement in the ownership and operation of this facility going forward? I'll take a no. Just let me know where I stand. But every time we bring that up, so far, all we've gotten from city officials is a blank stare. But I'll take a no. I understand. I've been told no before. And then finally, let me just say, with all due respect, we may have some issues in the black community, but we are wise enough and smart enough that we don't have to get these many people to a meeting to talk about two buses. We're smart enough to not waste our time at this meeting talking about what we're going to do with the two buses in the front. We'll figure that out. We need to spend our time here. on much more fruitful pursuits. Thank you so much.
My name is Jackie Wright, and I am a business owner, Wright Enterprises, and additionally, I am a nonprofit leader. I'm coming before you to ask specifically that you get the Bay Area LISC, that's the Bay Area Local Initiative Support Corporation, involved in this process here to regain Yoshi's. I ask that because of two reasons. Number one, their name came up as an organization that is providing $3 million of online credit for the sale, in the sale process for the Frederick Haynes project, okay? So they've got $3 million to help the sale that's supposed to go on that nobody knew about. And then additionally, I'd like to say in the OMI where I work as a nonprofit leader, this same organization has underwritten a report about the Broad Street corridor. And in that report, they say that there are 13 churches along the Broad Street corridor, and those 13 churches are a problem for commercial development. Also in that report, it says that there are 9 empty storefronts, but they don't say anything about the 9 empty storefronts being an economic deterrent, but they do say that the 13 churches, which are mostly black, are a deterrent. So if they can underwrite reports like that, that's a hindrance, in my opinion, to the black community, and they can be involved in providing $3 million for online credit funds for the sale of property, affordable housing in San Francisco that's predominantly for black people. They can be involved with providing some money for the project for Yoshi's and including economic development and workforce development model in that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, my supervisor, members of City Hall, thank you for coming out. My name is Maddie Scott. I'm the founder and executive director for Healing for Our Families in Our Nation. We're an organization regarding the homicide and violence in our community. And as you know, violence is a national health epidemic in this country. I'm so honored to also be in the presence of my physical agent, Mrs. Alma Jackson, for Sojourner Truth's Foster Family Service Agency, who's been in the business for 26 years of caring for our youth and foster families. Carletta Jackson-Lane and her daughter and I work together on preventing violence, grief, and loss, and all of the things that's going on with our youth and families due to this crisis that's in our city. One of them is economic empowerment, homelessness, and the outward migration of people of color. Also, we've been with the Black and Brown organization, with RICO and others who are here. We've worked extensively about these issues that are affecting our community. We really feel strong about this property at 1300. It hurts to see that footage that just was played on the screen there. I remember when, coming here to San Francisco, and I attended Third Baptist as a child, we had the Cobbler House. After church, we went to the Cobbler House to eat dinner. On Friday night, we went to the skating rink to go skating. We did everything. We shopped in our own neighborhood. We had our own vendors where we can go shop and buy a hat or a suit for Sunday's church. You know, we could take our children to the hairdresser, to the barbershop, to Chicago's or Archie's. We had all those things in our community, and then we can go see James Brown, you know, at the Fillmore Auditorium, or Aretha Franklin at Winterland. You know, our community was vibrant, strong, economically sound. We didn't have to go downtown for anything. And it hurts me. It hurts me today that we have this last piece of property, and you have the nerve to have all of our black jazz artists on Gulf Street up there, across the street from the Jazz Center, and none of us can participate in that building. And then on top of it, we have Yoshi's now, where we have all these wonderful folks who are artists in this community. We have a lot of artists, we have a lot of chefs. We have a wonderful plan for that property where it could be utilized to benefit us economically, socially, and with the arts. We have artists that we are talking with that can help us to have funding for that, for Yoshi's, that will train us and build some economic bridges for us here in the city. To lose so many people to gun violence and for the city not to be able to give us this property, I believe the city should write the check for us. They owe us that property. They should write the check. It should be free and clear for us to get that property for the lives that we have lost in this city. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel, and I hope you stand by us. Thank you.
Ms. Williams, Ms. Adrian Williams, please.
Yeah, I want to
This way?
speak to the...
You got my turn?
Yeah.
If you can stand right here, Ms. Williams. How's that?
I'm hoping Supervisor President Breed will return, but... Oh, hey, I mean, hi. Okay. As I said the last time you were here, I want to be hopeful and I want to believe. And so, first clarity, I was reading the report, who is Food for Soul? Is that doing business as a 1300? Okay, cool. Never saw that before. And secondly, I'm going to be very brief, but I want to trust you guys. And I'm picky, wiki. I really am. Because what I want is fairness. I want people to have equal opportunity. Now, when you all were here before, you said nothing was going to be done until you got back. Well, lo and behold, I walked down Fillmore Street and the marquee is blazing. What I'd like to suggest is that that marquee stay on, but that all the businesses along the Fillmore corridor is advertised on that marquee and not just one. And people who, when you talk about conflicts of interest, been my pet peeve for years. I want it to be fair. I want to be able to trust you guys. So little things like Food for Soul or something, it's a 1300. They owe us money too. And I'm tired of the preferential treatment of certain people in our community when other people have nothing. So I'd like to suggest that that marquee stay on, but that is equally represented all those businesses along the corridor. They're all suffering. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Mr. Fraser? Mr. Fraser? Which one?
Okay. How you doing, everybody? Ted Frazier here. Let me first of all, I wasn't born here. I was born in Sacramento. But I've been here, I moved here in 1947. And I used to live about a block away from here and play up and down Fillmore. But what I want to say is there was a little confusion when we started out. And that's understandable. There's a new movement starting here. We got a little growing pains that we got to go through. There'll be some confusion. But let me say this. I'm a longshoreman. And our motto is, an injury to one is an injury to all. So all the issues that the black community faces are issues that we all need to be concerned about. Amen. But in order to be successful, we have to be able to focus on one at a time. I sense a spirit because I've been through this in this city before. Back in the late 60s, early 70s, when we started coming together as a community. The main thing is unity. With unity, we can't fail. We cannot fail. But we got to be careful. We got to watch out. It's not only other folks that we have to be concerned about. It's some of our own people who have settled for the crumbs off the table rather than going for the whole enchilada, the whole kit and caboodle. That's been our problem. And part of the tactics is to divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. Keep confusion going so that we don't stick together. But I'm telling you, without getting specific, if we stick together, we can't lose. For the city, let's work together. Let's work together. Set up a committee of some of the people that are here to help work directly with you. We did that for Yerba Buena back in the early 70s. There was a lot of confusion there, but it worked, it happened. But it happened because of community participation. So again, watch out for the crumb snatchers. Let's stick together. We're going to win this thing. I know we're going to win. So let's work together and do it.
I would prefer to speak to the audience. Excuse me for turning my back to you. Thank you. My name is Christine Harris, and I know probably half of you in the room, even though I've only lived in this community since 2007. I've lived in the Bay Area since 1994. I've moved all over the country, over the world. I'm now retired, and I live in Oakland, but I still have, when I came here, this became my home. I've invested a lot of my own personal money here, a lot of my own personal money, and I'm not looking for any personal gain, and I want to make that absolutely clear. I agree with this gentleman right here. Yes, I do. We do have to stick together as a community and work with the city to solve this matter. I became involved with an organization or group of individuals called the Citizens Committee to Preserve the African American Heritage Center. And we came up with 4 guiding principles, which I hope we can all agree on. And here are the principles. Oh, and I see some of the people who agree with these principles who've read them are standing up. And if you agree with them, feel free to stand up. Number 1, stop the sale of the Heritage on Fillmore commercial property on the open market and retain black ownership of the property now that the existing arrangement with the developer is null and void. On that one, I understand that the city is bound by guidelines from the state, and we need to understand those guidelines, and we need to be smarter than those guidelines. So let's study those guidelines, because I'm convinced that there is a way for us to work with the city and work with those and around those guidelines to get what we want for this community. That's number 1. Number 2, retain the use of the commercial property for entertainment, restaurant, and African American culturally relevant activity as was originally intended and that originally existed. 2 things on that front, actually 3 things on that front. Number 1, some of you may know that I was chair of the board of the Jazz Heritage Center, and I think I was there for 2 or 3 years, and I won't go into why we had to close the doors, but if you're interested in knowing that, I can tell you that later. But in any event, there were wonderful offerings there. Some, an upscale restaurant, and yes, you're right, some people couldn't afford to go there, but there were an awful lot of free offerings with live music by African American musicians in the Jazz Heritage Center, and I only wish we had seen more people from the community coming to support the hard work we put in there. 2 more items: get the entertainment venue, formerly known as Yoshi's, back up and operating as quickly as possible, even if it's an interim basis, just to support the existing businesses in the community. And finally, we'd like to be an active part of the decision-making process, not only for the use of the property, but the ownership of the property. We should be at that table as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Clater, Mr. Todd Clater.
Thank you, President Breed, Ms. Maher, Mr. Torres, for joining us and offering this opportunity to express our concerns and hopes for the future. I would like to wear two hats tonight. One, I would like to represent Attorney Carl Williams in the reading of a letter that he drafted that I'd like to read on his behalf. Then secondly, I'll conclude with my own professional and personal thoughts. This letter was addressed to Honorable Ed Lee, Mayor, City and County of San Francisco, at City Hall. This is regarding the community hearing pertaining to the Fillmore Heritage Center. Dear Mayor Lee, due to medical requirements, I cannot attend the community hearing tonight, although I did attend the hearing on July 13th, 2015. I respectfully request that this letter be admitted into the official record of the proceedings of the Fillmore Heritage Center. I was a member of the Fillmore Western Addition Economic Development Task Force established by Mayor Frank Jordan in the early 1990s. The task force was established in response to a groundswell of discontent from the African American business community because of the decimation of African American business establishments along Fillmore Street by the San Francisco Redevelopment Agency's A2 project. The task force worked diligently for several months in a collaborative effort with the Redevelopment Agency staff and commission to devise a plan and program to create a framework for African American entrepreneurship on Fillmore Street. For reasons much too complicated for elaboration and discussion at this point, the African American community's aspiration to regain some semblance of its once vibrant business activity on Fillmore Street has met with repeated setbacks and frustration and inconsistent and lukewarm support by the city establishment. Yet, the overarching objective of the task force to have a business community along Fillmore Street that displays African American culture at its best while providing for African American entrepreneurship has broad and deep support within the San Francisco African American community and should also be of major concern to your administration as you struggle to stem the rapid exodus of African Americans from San Francisco. The crisis at the Fillmore Heritage Center provides an opportunity for your administration to signal the African American community that you want to restore Lower Fillmore Street as a hospitable location for African American culture and entrepreneurship opportunities. How can you send this signal? The document distributed at the meeting on July 13th stated that the feedback received from the community will be used to inform a request for proposals to be prepared for the sale of the properties. I respectfully urge, therefore, that the strongest possible language, consistent with the contemporary legal mandates, be in the request for proposals requiring prospective developers to approximate the goal, intent, and objective of ensuring African American entrepreneurship and providing a hospitable space for the display of African American culture at its best. Thank you. Best regards, Carl Williams, Esquire. I'll conclude with the following. There are 3 points that are essential to manifesting the goals of that Lower Fillmore Economic Development Plan at a particular time that we have an opportunity to make a change. One is transparency. We need transparency in all aspects of this disposition process and going beyond to the operations of the facility. 2, we need community oversight in the real estate disposition and operations. That means community involvement in the day-to-day operations and decision-making. And thirdly, that underpins the ability to do the other 2 is community capital investment. That is what makes you a participant in the day-to-day operations, and we want to achieve that going forward as we have in the past. Thank you.
Mr. Landry, Mr. Landry.
How everybody's doing, brothers and sisters? How's everybody doing? Nah, how's everybody doing, brothers? Well, first of all, Daniel Landry, born and raised here in the Fillmore Western Addition. It's good to see everybody out. Thank you, Supervisor Breed, President Supervisor Breed, and from all the staff coming from the mayor's office for giving us this opportunity to touch on this vital and important project over here at the Fillmore Heritage Center. Let me get right to it. As we know, the Bible speaks about where there's no vision. Say that again. Where there's no vision, but it's not just talking about people. It's talking about business. It's talking about all types. If we look at our condition, it's amazing that in the city of San Francisco with so much wealth and opportunity, a lot of times issues which should be simple becomes complicated. I know Supervisor Bree said that 2 weeks ago, and it is complicated. And I believe one of the reasons why it's complicated is because we need to redefine the language. That's very important. That's the foundation to everything you do. So as a community, if we haven't came to grip with this is called the Fillmore Heritage Center. It's not called the Fillmore Black Heritage Center. And that's for a reason. When you go to Japantown, you don't expect to see black people running Japantown. It's called Japantown, right? So us as a people, we're sitting here, we're in a valley of decision. We got to come to grip on what do we really want to represent. Now, heritage means birthright. So who birthright? And that's the question that's got to continue to be raised and answered only by us. I remember somebody said at City Hall, y'all got an ID problem. It's true. Because a lot of times we get so cross in our information and what we really represent, and then all of a sudden the crumb hustlers and those who's trying to pull something for themselves can't put together a community benefits package that includes everybody. And you're not doing us a favor if you can't stand before the people and include everybody. I shouldn't have to sit at every table because I expect those who represent us sitting there representing us, right? So, yes, it's correct to say some businesses have failed. And why businesses is failing in the Fillmore because you're not looking at up the way, down the way, low-income housing, and all the jurisdiction boundaries here in this district as being inclusive. Now, we prepare a 10-point plan for the community. Everybody can get under this umbrella. You know it's raining out there. Stop pushing yourself away from the community and come closer to the community. I know I'm right there. Let me just say this. This plan includes organizations, grassroots organizations in all areas of this district. But we're not just, remember, change the language. We got to start talking ownership. Because you don't ask nobody for permission to own your body. You own your body and God gave it to you. Keep it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Jackson Lane, Ms. Carletta Jackson Lane. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Carletta Jackson Lane. I'm the Executive Director of Sojourner Truth Foster Family Service Agency. I'm here because I want you to know that I have been in San Francisco since I was 5 years old. And I actually lived on Page and Fillmore. I went to John Muir Elementary School, and then my parents, we moved over to the Ingleside. But what I want to say to you today is that everything that we did on Sunday, we came right back to the Fillmore. I've been in Third Baptist for over 40 years. And as a child growing up, it's what gave me strength in my character. I'm sitting next to Tim Simon. Me and Tim used to actually, do all kind of community work, what they call Citywide Youth Council. Citywide Youth Council gave the youth of the Western Addition and in the Ingleside, wherever the at-risk kids were, minority kids, we learned leadership skills, we learned how to interact with city government, and we felt that we were part of the fabric of San Francisco. And guess what? The Heritage Center, that's what it's about. It's about the input that was actually put on this city in terms of Black professionals, Doris Ward, Willie B. Kennedy, Willie Brown, the list goes on. And then, Wesley Johnson, our famous doctors, Carlton Goodlett. How can we sit here and let them tell us that we don't have a right to that building over there? Okay? And this is one more thing I want to say. Now, if you check, you can check on Market Street. When the LGBT community needed a huge center, they have a fabulous center on Market Street. They paid $1 for it. You can't tell me that this city, as rich as it is, doesn't have buildings all over here that they could give to this Black community. We need to be valued. We have a strong political base. We're super intelligent. Willie Brown ran this state all those years, plus the bridge. We can go on and on. The bottom line is, when redevelopment came over here and they regentrified this area, they promised that we would have that Black input. And it's a duty owed by the city and county of San Francisco to make it real. Thank you.
Mr. Jordan, Mr. Fred Jordan. Mr. Jordan.
Good evening. Honorable Supervisor Breed, distinguished guests, City Hall, welcome to the Fillmore. My name is Fred Jordan. I'm president of the San Francisco African American Chamber of Commerce. You don't see us very much, but we're out there. We're in the community. And I want to say this. I've been president of the Black Chamber 3 times. Chamber was founded in 1973 at the height of the escalation of the disenfranchised of Black people in this city. And this whole area, as you know, was mowed down and sat for 20 years, and rats ran in between. I remember when you could rent an apartment right across the street for $250. What is it today? So I know a lot has been said today, but I really want to get right to the point. This city, in my opinion, is described by 2 letters that begin with R. One is the richest. The other one is the racist. And I'm serious about this. And all you have to do is to think about what is the chronology here. 10 years ago, the feds rated this city as the most predatory banking city in this country, and it allowed the chamber to go and appear before the Federal Reserve. It's the most, that means that any loan that you got had another 1-2% put on it. The feds made that report. Now, I came here from Boston in around 70, I was here in 73, and I watched. It didn't go from 14%, it went from 18%. I'm an engineer, I can count. It went from 18% to now, what do we have? 6%. That's because it's a predatory city. Just the other day, you heard the stats. Blacks in this city are arrested 10 times more than anybody else, sentenced 9 times more, served time 8 times more. We all know. The hotel council over there at the St. Francis, 600 waiters, 3 blacks. Come on. So all I'm just saying is that we are the richest city. We have 10 projects in this city in excess of $1 billion. Hunters Point, Candlestick, Treasure Island, all of the, Transbay Terminal, $5 billion, the bay. We have 10 projects in excess of $1 billion. But it's all like being out on the ocean and you don't have any drinking water. Water everywhere, not a drop to drink. In this city, you got development everywhere. We get nothing. Nothing. So that's all I'm saying. So I know. And what I'm saying is that we have the richest city. We have $300 million that come to the coffers of this city, and we don't get a dime. Just like the lady said before, we get nothing. There are all kinds of deals made. We cannot give up this last vestige of our heritage. Never.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Mark, Mr. Mark Bressler. Sir, it's your second time, so if you could be brief.
First time speaking to that.
Yes, sir. I understand this was the last one. 6 people
Right.
in front of you. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mars Breslow, and 2 weeks ago, for those of you that were here, I advocated a music and art community cultural center to be a nonprofit, perhaps run by the Park and Rec, and with the San Francisco Arts Commission involved. It would be income-based for families to serve the underserved community. What a joy that would be for somebody to really get into what they love to do in the arts. And let's say if it wasn't run by the Park Department and the Academy of Art took it over, with the stipulation that 90 or 95% would have to go to the underserved community, to low-income families, which would include scholarships. So that's what I mentioned 2 weeks ago. Just to give you a little bit of my background, this is my 5th decade in the music industry. I've been a photographer and writer for Downbeat Magazine and Jazzes, do a lot of program guide work, and about 4 of my billboard images are right up there, famous musicians. I started out in New York, and I want to tell you a little story about not only how black people were affected, but Jewish, Italian, and Irish families of working class people, how Robert Moses, the Parks Commissioner, who had 6 state positions and municipal positions in the city, destroyed that city by carving expressways. Nothing meant for mass transportation, displaced 5,000 people, 1,500 families, and they had a relocation office, was always closed. So you see, this affects all races. Look what's happening now in San Francisco. The techies have taken over to where many of the Latin people in the Mission have to leave. So this happens to everybody. And Justin Herman was the culprit here. And I was part of that exhibit, Harlem of the West, and I got to know about the history of what happened here. Justin Herman, his model was Robert Moses. Building that divide at Geary and Fillmore created a racial divide. And by not giving this back to the city for a music and art community, would be a shame. Thank you. Thank you.
Brother Rico?
I'm going to be pretty brief. I just wanted to say thank everybody for coming out, and also I agree with the community benefits package that was presented. I am the Vice President of the New Community Leadership Foundation, born and raised in the community, and I also wanted to note that Derek Brown, he was born and raised in this community, which is 100% important to me, but I definitely did want to just say a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, we really got to look to be innovative with our ideas. We really got to think about what can we produce, what can we create in order to make this happen. A lot of times, the young person's voice is shut out and muted by people who believe they know what's best for us. When a lot of time, when they first said they were going to open up Yoshi's, I was at the redevelopment meeting and I spoke to a lady. I said, that's not going to work. She laughed at me. I said, it's not going to work. We have a very young, thriving community who need to know the history of jazz. But jazz as a straight focal point, it is not going to produce enough revenue to create anything far as wealth for our community. This community is a young community who is evolving every single day, and especially when you talk about the evolution of jazz, it created R&B, it created hip-hop, and then how can we make that as an anchor to this development? And I'm Rico.
Mr. Tim Simon. Mr. Tim Simon.
Good evening. My name is Timothy Allen Simon, and first I want to thank Board of Supervisor President London Breed for holding this venue. I wasn't here on the 13th. I was out of town, but she's a treasure to this community and this city. Everything she does is for our benefit, and I just want to say how much I appreciate her. Kim and I are investors in Yoshi's, both the first and second round, as is Fred Jordan is also an investor. And I know our investment, or my investment, was based on one principle, and that's my love for jazz. America's contribution to the world, America's only original art form. As many of you know, my father owned many nightclubs around this city, and they were all based on the principle of jazz and the elegance of this art form and black people. So it's just my hope that the facility maintains its jazz core value and its art performance. I think that's really important. Number two, I think it's important to note that this is a facility 1 year that grossed over $11 million. I think it was close to $13 million. So it's a very viable facility. And I'm a member of SF Jazz, and SF Jazz now has something like over 10,000 subscribed members. So jazz can survive in the right environment. And we should look upon it in reverence. Wynton Marsalis had an album called His Majesty the Blues. Okay, that is we should look upon these art forms with reverence and not allow them to be denigrated because of pop or commercial, favor. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say. I'm a native of this city as well, as is Kim, born and raised. I was born at Stanford Hospital, young people. Okay, Stanford Hospital is right up the street, what is now the Pacific Medical Center. If you see that white building in the middle, that was the Stanford Medical Center. That's where I was born. And we've made the decision to stay in this community. We've invested in this community, and I think we need to continue to help great leaders like President London Breed attract African Americans back to this city. It can happen. We have immigrants coming here with nothing, and they find a way to put their stakes down and live in this city. We can bring black folks from Pittsburgh and Antioch and other places back here. It can happen. But more important, the point I wanted to make is that is a viable economic entity there that can survive under the right management and the right support from the city and county of San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Mr. David Hardiman.
First, giving honor to God, and Reverend Brown is my pastor, Third Baptist Church for many years, as my mother was, and appreciation for the supervisors. I'm representing educational processes as well as music. I was at City College of San Francisco for 30 years and developed the jazz studies. I have the San Francisco All-Star Big Band, which is predominantly a black band on purpose. We're not segregated, but we're trying to preserve the African American music. This is our 40th year celebration, and there aren't too many big bands that can survive that long under any circumstances. Trying to develop the children and young students at City College. I'm proud to say many of them are now featured in great artists who are performing all over the world. Some of our fruits. I performed at Yoshi's at least with my big band at least 3 times. The 37th anniversary was there. I did one of my CD's releases there at Yoshi's. I watched it being built, and I noticed the differences as to what happened after Kaz Kajimura took over. It became a great venue. It can still be a great venue if you will give it support. I was the president of the Bay Area Jazz Society for about 1.5 years, which was an integrated organization. And I watched that develop and fall apart because of a lack of support. I'm now president of the Caribbean Basin Institute for Education and Culture, as vice president for the Oakland Public Conservatory of Music, and that has folded, unfortunately. So it comes down to saying to you that for education for our students and for the preservation of our African American heritage jazz, which incorporates all the different styles, and the evolution of the music cannot be ever stopped because it's going to continue. And we can't let hip hop and rap and R&B only represent African Americans. We have to preserve our own heritage.
Thank you.